Okay, good afternoon, good day to all of you connecting wherever you are in the world. We're super excited to have you today. Our guest is Fanny Shankar Cooper. Hi, Fanny.
Hello everyone. Nice meeting everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening for Anjorin. Looks like.
It's even so, yeah. Same here.
Yeah, so Fanny, if you have read Fanny's profile, Fanny is a solution architect, and he is currently based in India, Hyderabad at the moment. Yes, Fanny?
Yeah, I am.
And yes,
Yeah.
so a solution architect based in India. He has a lot of experience. He has over 14 years experience, and he's going to be sharing, today the topic of our conversation, which is how you can become E-shape, become an E-shape professional. So again, we have already started the conversation by recording the conversation. So I'd like to give you guys a quick background story, about Fanny and I. So I met Fanny 11 years ago in Hyderabad. I was on the road to developing my own E-shape skills. I was taking some trainings on ethical hacking, networking, and I met Fanny in one of those classes I was taking in India, um, ITIL version 3. Fanny?
Yeah, version
Yes.
three.
Yeah.
Mazen, you are saying that I'll go with you. I forgot.
Yes, yes. And so
Yeah.
that was where I met Fanny. Fanny at that point in time was an IBM Lotus expert, and as an IBM Lotus expert at that point in time, he was currently administering systems for the organizations he was serving. And so, Fanny, I'd like to go into the details and talk about us, but I would like you to take over. Do you mind, Fanny, telling us a little about you?
Oh, sure. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, where you're joining from the world. Yeah, my name is Fani Shankar Cooper. I'm Russell's friend, and it's an honor to join this meeting. It's first of its kind that I'm joining. Probably the first time I'm talking about myself with someone. So yeah, so I live in Hyderabad. It's in southern part of India. I'm into this IT thing for the past about 14 years. I've started off with GE Capital in 2005, I believe. So that's a kind of first IT services company which have started its operations from India. This was like, at that time, our government was into starting off all the BPO services, kind of, back end operations for the world. I think that was a scheme of things at that time. So I joined in a outbound call center when I was kind of doing calling and it was all non-technical. So I think I remember I I was doing a project with Navionics. It was it's an electronic charting machine company, which is used by the major, marinas, the ships, vessels, etc. So I was doing a kind of a sale. It's an online sale, wherein we used to have a simple application wherein say, what are the various features and facilities available at various ports or marinas, etc. So that was the kind of beginning that I had. And then from there, I was always thinking, because I'm a mechanical engineer, by the way, by education. And unfortunately, I had to get into IT because that's what pays in India. Yeah. Yeah. So everybody can be an IT guy in India. Yeah. That's how it's been set up for us. So I did a 4 year course in mechanical engineering. And at that time, I come from a small town, by the way, so we hardly had or have any exposure to IT or any kind of understanding of how a global IT world works or looks like. And then, so therefore, I had to move out. I wanted to go to US for further studies, but unfortunately, uh, because of certain family conditions, terms and conditions. I couldn't. So therefore I said, let me go explore myself out. And then I joined that company for doing, as in that was the easiest thing, where it doesn't require any kind of skills, just you just have to keep talking, like how I'm doing for the past 3.5 minutes, I guess. Yeah, I'm counting. Yeah, because I'm a corporate trainer also, so I kind of keep a track of what I'm talking. So I started from there, and then after coming to Hyderabad, I was looking at all the people, all my uh, contemporaries. That's a big word, but still, yeah, it's usable. I was seeing people going to IT companies, etc., and then there I am doing a call center job, which is kind of stands at a lower strata in the society, at least the one that I belong to, or given that my friends, everyone were working in IT, collaborates, etc. So that's when I thought, what's the easiest way uh, to get into an IT? Because you want to follow the world. If world is earning in dollars, for sure you want to earn in dollars. So therefore, I thought, how do I do it? Then I felt the lowest hanging fruit at that time would be to be a technical support executive, because you don't have to do a lot of delving into the nitty gritties of IT. That would entail investing money, spending time in trainings, this, that, and all. At that time, it was again, you have to all fund all by yourself, etc. So I felt, being in a local or a technical support is the easiest thing. You just need to know about what do you do if a system is shut down, or what do you do if something is not working. Let's say internet is not working, your mouse is not working, your keyboard is not working, etc. So there can be enormity of a lot of scheme there. So I felt that's the easiest thing. So I said, why not just do it instead of going for the classy Java database, this, that, and all. So that was the first step which I took. And then
Wait,
after joining, yeah,
funny, funny. One second.
yeah,
Wow, what you are sharing basically it's a beautiful story. But just for clarity purposes, I want the audience to understand, especially for those who are joining us. You are telling us about yourself, and then you are also telling us, about your journey to becoming a solution architect. You are telling
yeah,
us where you
exactly.
started and the goal basically, because I know a lot of people are going to be asking a lot of questions. The goal is you are trying to simplify and summarize this experience so that people can have an opportunity to ask questions. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah,
Per-
absolutely.
Perfect.
I should pause and it's just that we are on the takeoff. We are at 500,000 feet, so therefore, so it's more of the pilot side to control,
Okay.
and then it go in the autopilot mode, right?
Okay.
Okay, so
So
so from there, I felt the easiest way is to be a technical support executive, and from there, I felt the next step would be to be a system administrator. So that's the easiest thing to do. So here I am an average student, someone who can spend some time in learning, but who's not really interested in learning. If at all, then I would have been in some Google or someplace, right? So naturally, I'm not there. So I was like a pretty average student at that time, and then so from there, system admin, and then starting working in the system admin. That's when I felt, oh, what's the next step? It could be a systems engineer at that time, and then from a systems engineer, I became on to be a project leader, and from then on to be into a technical architect role. And finally, today I'm doing a solutions architect. So all along, uh, the so the bottom line is you don't have to be an expert in anything, by the way. So as in, for sure, you would need to do some talking, you need to do some working, you need to understand how things work or how stuff work. But it's not like, you go on for a training for 6 months or a year or something, take a sabbatical, learn something, get rejuvenated, and then, start up with something else. It has never been a case. So it's always like, start building your expertise to begin with, and then your experience counts, as long as you're always interested in building your expertise, and then explore stuff all along, all the way. Like, for example, you're doing technology one, then technology two, technology three. Just explore. You don't have to be like a real subject matter experts, like how it used to be in those days. Like, you're like having a single unitary uh, vision of, hey, I'm going to be a pure storage guy. You're not going to get you anywhere. Or I'm going to be a pure network guy. You're not going to go anywhere there. So there's always a saturation and limitation that happens all the time. But instead, try to expand your horizons. Go into different areas, and your experience actually helps in converting that to a good learning experience. And then from there, you can always do the exploration with a little bit of processes and frameworks, skills, etc. You can always achieve. So you don't really have to have a structured learning all the time. So that's kind of, summary. I don't know how
Okay.
much of it makes sense, but I thought I would first talk and then, probably,
Okay.
yeah, we can take it from there. Yeah.
Okay. So Fanny, we have a mix of audience here. We have some people who are very, very technical. And Jorin, for instance, is a technical expert. We have David, for instance, who is a product leader. We have Kirk, who is a product leader. We have some people who are very technical. However, we also have an audience that is new to this technological talk. And many of the things that you are saying sounds like Latin, Arabic, and French. So I like you at the point in time where we find a middle point for everybody. So I'd like to ask specific questions, and
Sure.
if you can, I know if we can take it to a higher level of abstraction so that people can really get an opportunity to ask, how can I apply this in my own career? So if that is said, and we spent the first 13 minutes talking about you and your experience, I'd like us to go back to the reason why we are here. Today's conversation is about becoming E-shaped. What does E-shape mean to you as a solution architect, as a practicing solution architect?
E-shape is, Mazen, you just have to go with the definitions of all the E's in the E-shape. So there are four E's. So one is experience, exploration, as in you start with your expertise. End of the day, you have to start with something. So I would say expertise would be your starting, and then you have your experience to back up your expertise. And then with that, you can always explore a lot of stuff. Like, for example, if you're a cloud professional, say you've been doing a lot of Azure stuff for 1-2 years. So it doesn't take much time to transform or, grab some AWS stuff or the Google GCP stuff or the Oracle stuff. So that's just about exploration. We just have to, explore stuff. It won't be any different. It's just that probably, you might see a different kind of UI. In Azure, you have a left, a navigation. Probably in AWS, there are like all types of icons. You don't really have a docked station or something. So that's the only difference. But end of the day, if you second that with your experience, go on exploring stuff, so that kind of, can be transformed into an execution, which is like, I want to do now a cloud learning. I want to be a complete cloud professional. So if you're an Azure guy, it doesn't take much time to be a AWS or a GCP. So that's kind of, summarizing the four E's of E-shape. That is your expertise. You begin with your expertise, you have your experience, and then you have that curiosity, the keenness to do the exploration, and then yeah, there you go. You've just shared your screen. So the execution stands at the last mile. That is to stitch all this together with some processes, some frameworks, etc., and then streamline that into an execution. That would be your end game, or the final destiny. So that's what I kind of feel about E-shape.
Thank you. Thank you, Fanny. So, for summary purposes, we are saying an E, like the very definition, has these four components that you've described. But now,
Yeah.
a question is, one of the reasons why you are driving this conversation is we see you as an E-shaped professional. And you have told us your journey. You have shared with us when we started this conversation, your journey to becoming a solution architect. And I would like to go back a little bit to some of those conversations and say, why did you feel the need to start your journey of being E-shaped?
Yeah, so because the thing is, end of the day, uh, computing is growing day in, day out. There are like, tons of new technologies, new languages, new methodologies, new frameworks that are in the market. Why? Because it's just like, uh, you grow, knowledge grows, technology grows, the way we live. So there's a change or growth in everything, by the way. So same as with the computing. So the thing is like, if you go about 15, 20 years ago, uh, most of the people like, were unitary, as in, to put it in a simplistic way, it's like kind of a single framework or a single learning. Like you're a Java professional, then you are a Java professional, and that's the end of the world. You don't have to learn anything else because at that time the most matured language was Java, for example, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, or probably C, which was not really used uh, in the easy paying jobs where you can quickly have your grab of things, right? Like if you have to be a C professional, then you need to have that VLSI and then all that embedded system kind of coding. So that's not really a common job that you can find in the market. So they're like pretty rare jobs. But if you take Java, right? So at that time, it was like, a single stream. You don't really have a lot of diversity. There are not much of advancements in computing at that time. But today, we have a ton of things. You have like a ton of languages that you can use to make uh, your work or make your stuff, your day-to-day activities at ease. Like a lot of automation can be done in Perl, can be done in PowerShell, can be done in Python. And then I use BAT for example. I use a mix of BAT and PowerShell to execute my automation. So there are like multiple ways of doing all stuff. So how do you achieve excellence in each of these things? There's no way, as in there is a way to get to some kind of excellence, but it, is it really worth the time that we spend in excelling in a particular programming language? No, it's not required actually. All you need to know is like you should always back your expertise and experience all the time so that you can come up with a holistic solution which is easy. So you don't really have to kind of master a technology end of the day. You have to master the understanding of computing. That's the bottom line. As long as you are doing that, for example, for me, if I want to do a coding, I can do it in Java today, I can do it in C tomorrow. It's pretty easy. You just need to know the ABCDs, the frameworks, the ABCDs of each of it, and that comes with some kind of exploration. So as long as you are exploring various stuff, it becomes easy. You just have to do some bookmarking of all these items, and then it becomes easy. Like for example, there is init as a integer in Java, and it's pretty similar in most of the languages. So you don't really have to delve in a lot in there unless you want to develop your own language. When I'll say, instead of saying init, I would want to bookmark it as an integer as an expansion. So it all depends there. So the main thing is, uh, given the numerous technologies which are there in the market, uh, how do we kind of use them all for our benefit, right? So that needs, that kind of approach will require understanding the bottom line. That will come only with your exploration, understanding of computing world, and then there you go, you're there. Like the example I've given for the cloud computing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Fanny. A lot of people are dropping questions in the question box, which of course we'll be attending to in a few minutes. And again, we encourage more people to drop questions that you might have, you like Fanny to answer. As a matter of fact, you are going to be reading your own questions out. We're going to be giving you an opportunity to have that conversation with Fanny. Fanny, before we jump into that, I want to share something with you. So here on the screen, you'd see this is a quote from Francesca Gino. In there she said, leaders should hire for curiosity, model inquisitiveness, emphasize learning goals, let workers explore and broaden their interest and have whys and what ifs. How might we days? So doing so will help the organization adapt to uncertain market conditions and external pressures and boost the business success. Now, this is from the Harvard Business Review. You know, in fact, the title of this article is Business Case for Curiosity. Now, I'm trying to tie this to the idea that organizations, as a matter of fact, research has shown that organizations are investing heavily in E-shape people. How does that make you feel? Have you seen that within your organization? What do you think about this whole idea of what organizations are doing today about E-shapes?
Yeah, so from my experience, like, I was working with big companies just about 6 years ago, and then I said, yeah, so enough of that. And then I started off with a product company, which is into enterprise information governance. So I've kind of started the operations in India for that company. Now I'm heading a team of about 23 people. So it's a small company. It's about a 100 strength company across California,
Can I
San
put it
Jose.
up? I don't know how to put the umbrella open.
Okay,
Sorry, Fanny,
okay,
please continue.
no problem. So yeah, so when I started this company, we had a serious challenge. Like, uh, I joined because, someone who was already there in the company, that person wanted me to join this company. So I joined. That was easy because I know that person, and then it's pretty easy. And then from there, uh, we thought of hiring some 30 people by end of 2015, December. I joined in, I think I joined in February 2015. We couldn't actually, because the main issue there was, like, everybody was into a single direction with respect to their skills. Like, for example, if I'm looking at a Java developer, he's like super good developer, like an awesome guy. Mazen, these are real examples that I'm trying to quote here. But uh, there are many limitations that he needs a seconding of a web guy, a database schema guy. As in, ideally, it is expected that a Java person should know the database schema, etc. But so that's the kind of thing that the world is in, is what I felt in 2015, for example. So and not just that, like, we were trying to hire Lotus nodes and messaging experts, because we are into the unstructured data industry. So we would need people who has experience with files, emails, all kind of unstructured data. But we were not getting a mix of people who are kind of, are inclined towards or okay to accept new things and then learn new stuff, etc. Because they're pretty much into their own scheme of things. It's kind of, man, I would put in one word called institutionalized. Someone, if they are institutionalized in a single technology, they're kind of, stuck there. So uh, then what happens is, like, for example, in future or today, if you're going into a services company who's doing a lot of cloud stuff, uh, you cannot hire a person with just Azure technology, right? Because there's AWS also, because there'll be customers who will be using Azure, there'll be some customers who will be using AWS based on their needs, etc. So that kind of, what do you say, the expanse in the technology would need in today's circumstances that you should be open, you should be learning a lot of technologies. So how do you learn something is pretty bottom line is you should have curiosity. Hey, Azure works like this. How about AWS? How about GCP, for example? Okay, Java works like this. How different is a Python from a Java? How different is any other language which is similar to Java from Java? So if we have that kind of curiosity, right, and then that actually will be your driver day in, day out, and then it becomes very easy. Like, for example, tomorrow someone comes and says, hey, you write this particular small command line kind of an application in Java. Hey, why don't I try it in C#? That's even easy. Or probably I can give it a try in .NET. It won't be difficult, actually, right? It's just that if you keep asking those questions about what's the easiest way, what's the shortest path to solve a problem, and then what's the best tool available in the market to solve a problem. So that will come only with curiosity. So as long as you're there, then I would go with the Harvard people saying those little questions, why, how, what if, all those kind of things, right? It's pretty easy, End of the day, computers is 0 and 1. That's where, from where, we extrapolate the stuff to whatever that we are doing today, for example. There's all zeros and ones that's happening.
I agree. Funny, I agree. Funny, for those people who are just joining, Fanny and I, and as well as the community, we've had interesting conversations. We've had questions like Fanny telling us about him. He has also told us about his journey on how he became a solution architect. He has talked about what being E-shape means to him. And then he has talked about how organizations from his experience are investing in E-shape people. So Fanny, we've had a very beautiful conversation, and thanks for sharing your story so far. Now, judging from your experience, my last question that I have for you before we bring the floor open for people to ask questions, because we want people to ask you questions directly, is if I'm interested in becoming E-shape, right, Fanny? How do I start? What are my first steps? How do I get to it? I want to get to the point where I do not want to just know only Agile, for instance. I want to know something else. And sometimes I'm limited by fear of the unknown. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all of this technical stuff. How do I go from there? How do you get me to the point where I move from, where I am and keep going?
Yeah, so we should know ABCDs. That's it. So you start with the ABCDs, ABCDs, your experience will give you or help you form words, and then further experience and exploration would actually help you form sentences, and you use the sentences for conversations. That is your execution, So I'm simply putting it that way. For example, this can be applied anywhere. So I think we are talking about computing in general, right? So that's a topic, right? So for example, so if I go with computing, then I would say you need to understand 0 and 1. It's not difficult to understand 0 and 1. And then how are we dealing with 0 and 1s in computing? How is the processor working? How is the memory working? Say, end of the day, all of these are transistors. And what does a transistor do? It's a gate. It says 0 and 1. I let you go is 1. I'm stopping you is 0. And then this combination, I'm now, putting in a huge chain. And then the end result is whatever computing that we are seeing today. For example, you take a document, you take a movie, for example, and then you convert that into byte stream. You can't make a difference out of it. Everything is 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, whatever size the document and stuff is like, right? And then what happens is that information is read by a specific application. Let's say there's some Microsoft Office or, which is backed by your operating system. And then when it is reading those zeros and ones, it says, hey, this is a document. And then you take a similar operating system and then an application on top of it. When it is reading the zeros and ones, it says, hey, this is a movie, right? So it's just that bookmarking, right? So you have to start from there. Man, this is specifically talking about computing. So this is how I kind of started. I was wondering, how are we doing? As in, you don't really have to go at that level. You can go there if you want to do all the chip level coding and stuff like that, right? You can code your RAM, you can code your storage, you can code your processor, etc. So that's how it is, right? A processor has, hey, 01001 plus 001, and then that plus is also translated into something kind of a 0001 or something. End of the day, that's what it is. That's what the computer understands. And it says, when you're passing this information, you're saying, hey, do addition, do subtraction, do multiplication. That's like bottom line. And then complicate that, slowly complicate that. And then that's when your major other processing actually comes into play, right? So if you see, when we started computing back in 70s, there were like some 5,000, 6,000, or I think that was the number of transistors a processor used to have. Today it's like 5 billion, 6 billion transistors in a processor. That is 6 billions of zeros and ones put together gives you this computing, right? So as in, when I see from that perspective, I don't really need to know that because I'm not doing the job. But that kind of information is definitely helpful when I'm doing some performance. Let's say I'm doing a database. If someone asks me, how good is your database? There are many things that actually surrounds a database performance, right? So I can use a different level of stuff, because if you're always towards detailed orientation, then you'll say, hey, I'm reading this particular, file groups, if it is your standard MS SQL or a table space, etc. I'm reading this at this block size. That's where you can start, for example, and then you can be a performance guy there, right? So all along, as long as your curiosity, your interest is towards knowing the nitty-gritties of the stuff, you should always question. You should not accept if someone says, click on these two buttons. You should never say, or you should just never go and click on those two buttons. You should question what happens with clicking on button number one. What are the actions that something, or whatever the backend actions that happens for that button number one. You need to note it down. And then what are the repercussions which will be seconded when you go and click on that button number two, for example, right? So if you are able to document, detail each and every other stuff at that level and keep questioning, never say accept something that we are doing, yes, it's because they're paying something, so therefore, I'm doing this, right? So we should never do that. Instead, we should ask those questions, and that's the first stepping stone towards achieving the exploration, or getting to that experience end of the day. That's how I kind of learn. Probably,
Wow.
yeah. It's a 6-minute answer.
I noticed. I noticed, Fanny. Thank you. Fanny, what you just successfully did was tell us your own experience. You are saying that, if I understood you correctly, you are saying that the first step to learning to becoming E-shape is curiosity. Being curious to understand, where do I want to go from here? What is the relevance of this particular skill, whether it is DevOps, whether it is ANSI, whatever it is. What is the relevance? How can it benefit me? So it starts with him. What is in it for me? Curiosity. Do I get you correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Because
So,
you need to know your building blocks.
okay.
It's just like English. Because the major thing which I felt personally is this: uh, there is a voice and there is an action associated to a voice.
Okay.
So that's how I kind of stitch the learning. So this equally applicable for anything, for example. So in a language, a particular voice would command you to do a certain thing. That's exactly how computing works. Like, for example, if someone says, if Russell says, hey, funny talk. So I take that voice, I kind of, process it, and then my brain says, hey, funny talk, meaning I need to open my vocal cords, use some information from my brain and then project it out. Okay, so it's a mapping. Now you change that. I don't know what do you call that in any other language. Like for example, in our Hindi, baat karo, it's the same thing. It's talk. So it's a voice of action. Java is the same. Python is the same. C is the same. There's nothing different. So as long as we are able to do that mapping to begin with, it becomes very easy for us to learn anything for that matter.
Funny, what you just said is powerful. What you just said, let me understand in my own, I'm not as smart as you, but let me see. What you are just saying is, if I want to learn anything like language, I need to understand the ABCs. If I know the ABC of, let's say, a technical skill, if I'm curious to say, what is the ABC, I can go from there. So let me give you my own personal example. So like 12, 13 years ago, I learned American Sign Language, where you can communicate with the deaf with your hands. And so to your point, I started by learning all the alphabets, A, B, C, D, E, F to Z. And when I understood the alphabet, I moved to gesticulation, understanding that this is father and this is mother, and going from there. So, and I also know that you speak multiple languages. You also speak German and Hindi and multiple languages. So you are, and what?
I understand, kind of understand German. I don't speak it.
Okay, all right,
I
cool.
can speak. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not difficult, I can say. Yeah.
So you are saying that if I want to move to technical competence, if I want to develop some E-shaped skills, I need to go back to the foundations, understand, draw that, do that mapping, map the basic, and then move from there. Correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Fanny, I have understood you correctly. A couple of persons might have some questions for you at this point that I want to keep the floor open so that people can jump in. People who are interested in becoming E-shape in their organization, they might want to jump in and see exactly how they can do so and ask you those questions directly. Who would like to start? Yes, Anthony, please.
Hello, Fanny. Thank you so much for taking us through your journey. It's really remarkable. And honestly, I can only imagine, all the many years of studying and trying to understand yourself, or as we say in Glappy, uncover yourself before you got to where you are today. So my question, I think it's been touched, but so I know that when you started, like many years ago, probably the cloud is, as we know it today, is different. So assuming you are just about to start your journey of becoming a solutions architect today, so I'm wondering, is there anything you can change? So assuming if you're just about to start your journey today, with all the things that you've learned, all the things that you know, is there anything you would have changed?
But especially you want to start into the cloud, right?
Yeah.
Do something on the cloud. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. So what you should do is like you should draw some analogy, right? So for example, on cloud, what you get is the systems to begin with. I know you have a lot of microservices, application services that actually comes at a later part. So that's like day 2, day 4 of your journey. But day 1 is you need to start with the system, right? And then that system is, if you break that down, there's a compute, there's a storage, there's a network, and there are access and security privileges, for example, right? And that's the same for everything. Even for your local computer, it's the same. Cloud is the same. So as long as you're able to understand, for example, now what is that my application needs? How many users are going to use my application? Where are they located? Okay, and then what kind of processing that I'm going to do with my application? Is it a transactional application? Is it a data processing application? What kind of application it is. So if you are able to look at from that perspective, then the learning becomes very easy for you to design a solution. And then whether it is Azure or AWS or a GCP, it's all depends on your ease of use. For example, if you are a big corporate, then I would assume they have an existing relationships with Microsoft. So therefore, it's easier for them to have a discounted Azure pricing or Azure subscription. That's how Azure does basically. But if you're on Amazon, yeah, you need a lot of sales pitch, etc. But I'm pretty sure for smaller guys, Amazon is the right place. But because I come from a enterprise scheme of things, I know that Azure is the first choice. So that's how it is. So end of the day, you understand your compute, then I'll say how many systems I need. Then you just have to understand what is the offering that you have on Azure for the systems, or on GCP, or on AWS, right? So for example, I need a 2 CPU system. There are like multiple grades in Azure, same as AWS. So rest of the things are same, as long as you get to that basics, that is my compute, my storage, my network, that's it. If you get that, you're a cloud professional at the end of the day. All you need is experience with different UIs. Like I told you, right? I think we started with saying Azure has a left side navigation, a dock, whereas Amazon has it, but it's just that you don't really see it on the landing page. That's the difference. But ultimately, bottom line, backend, it's all the same. Maybe a different operating system on AWS, but yeah.
Thank you.
Because, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
that
you.
answer. Again,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
no,
tend
no.
to talk.
No, funny. Talking talking is what you do for a living. I completely understand. So for those of you who are just joining, we are discussing E-shape skills. We asked Fanny a couple of questions. Fanny told us about himself. Fanny told us about his journey to becoming a solution architect. Fanny told us about what it means to be E-shape from his perspective. Fanny told us why organizations are hiring people. He used his example. He's responsible for 30 to 100 people within his organization, and he is responsible also for hiring, and they are looking for E-shape, and it's a big issue getting professionals that are E-shape. Fanny shared that perspective with us as well. And Fanny also told us an example of using the way he went about it on how you can be E-shape. So that's what we've been discussing so far for the past 45 minutes or so. So again, the floor is open. If you have questions, if you are interested in becoming E-shape, if you want to take your organization E-shape, if you want to get your team to start thinking E-shape, what do you decide that this is an opportunity to ask Fanny? Fanny is, for those of you who do not know, is a pure performance engineer at a system level. And he does a lot of interesting solution architecture work, with multiple organizations across the US. I'm talking about large banks, large organizations across the US. He has done solution architecture for them and worked for them, and he is a big data guy as well. And he does a lot of data crunching and numbers. And, so feel free to barrage him with all the technical questions that you may have, especially if you are interested in the journey of being E-shape. Fanny, did I capture your experience properly?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 of the live.
Happy to go again if nobody is there. Is that okay, Fanny?
Absolutely, I'm here to talk.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So, solutions architecture is one of my areas of interest, and it's something that I'm aspiring to be in the next 5 to 6 years from now. So I'm just wondering, just to steer me in the right direction, are you involved in testing and system integration as part of your role as a solutions architect?
Part of it, I'm actually a product guy, so I'm working in a product company right now, which is into information governance, enterprise information governance. So we have I think 3 of the 4 largest banks in US right now: JPMC, Citi, Wells Fargo. We are working with Bank of America at the moment. So that is also there. So see, solutioning it's like this. It's to solve an existing problem. So the problem can be solved based on what the problem is, right? For example, it can be a functional problem that would require some kind of tools. It could be a existing problem within an existing framework that would require a deep knowledge of the tool that is actually is the platform for the problem. So end of the day, solving a problem is first thing first, you need to know all the solutions. Or probably, the first step is you should understand what is a problem before you can solve it. So you should see, for example, I say, hey, because I come from a system background, so I often talk more about CPUs or the compute storages, network, etc. So if an application says, I'm using a lot of CPU at a given time, or a time of a day or something, so the solving there, the problem solving would be more on the application or the tool which is experiencing that problem. And then if you're talking about a larger problem, saying, how do I manage a lot of files which are there on my file share in my organization, say to the tune of some 200-300 terabytes? How do I manage? So that's a different problem. So that requires what kind of solutions or what kind of plausible solutions are possible to solve the problem. Like, you need to then define what is actually causing or what is that you're thinking about it. Like, you have 200 terabytes. What do you want to do? What are you actually worrying about? Then they'll say, hey, there may be a lot of duplicates. Now you have these things are created by humans who don't really care, who don't have any kind of school rules or something. There are like a lot of data there. Then at that point, it becomes a different problem. Then you need to know some tools. You need to scan the data. You need to identify the data. And then once you have that repository, then you can solve the problem. Say, hey, tell me now, what's the problem? Now I know what you have. I say, identify all the duplicates and delete them. Fair enough. Within that whatever, tools that you're using. So it all depends, you see. So solution architect is not really a thing. It's just about your approach. Your approach has to be like the last mile approach all the time. I don't know if that makes sense, Anthony.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Fanny. Thank you. I like the mention of last mile excellence. Last mile excellence is something that we'll also talk about in a GLAPI community extensively. And thank you for bringing that. I have a question from the comment session here. Doreen is asking, between experience and expertise, which is the foundation building block as it relates to the E-shaped mindset? Experience and expertise, which of them is the foundation from your perspective, the foundation building block?
Yeah, we are always old. We are not prodigies. So therefore, it is experience that gets you to the expertise. Unless you're a prodigy who's born with a lot of information, ingrained information when you're born. So at that time, it's like expertise by default. But ultimately, it's the experience which actually helps you gain expertise.
And experience from your perspective is through trying and failing, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, you need to fail to know how to solve a problem, end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You can't be a king and then, understand the issues of the people. You have to be that end guy at the receiving end to understand what are the problems. Then you can be the king to solve the problem, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful perspective. The floor is still open, guys. We're talking about E-shape skills, how to develop E-shape skills, how to develop the E-shape mindset. You are a Scrum Master, you are a product owner. Within your team, how do you get people to start thinking E-shape? Also from the solution architecture at the program level or the portfolio level, which Fanny sits. He is also sharing his experience. David, I noticed you wanted to ask your question.
Yeah, I know a lot of the folks here on the call are at the beginning of their career. And Fanny, I noticed that you started in mechanical engineering. I started aerospace engineering.
Wow.
So I wasn't able to do that my whole career. I started off, at least I started off in that direction. So I'm wondering how you decided to switch gears, because I know how I decided, but I'm curious how you decided, and how do you keep from, after getting a degree in something, you would like to use it, right? But I think especially engineering gives you problem-solving skills. So it looks like you've changed directions. Can you talk a little bit about how you decided to do that?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. So I think earlier I was talking about IT. This E-shape thing is applicable pretty much to anything. So so my thing was like really kind of a planned one. I planned after I started, so therefore there's no planning to begin with, actually. You know, so my bottom line was usually in my community or in my college, etc. So everybody was actually, you know, always into the IT. So therefore they always wanted to get into the IT thing. That you don't want to go into a call center and then other places to be into the IT. But I believe that the journey has to continue. You cannot stop. So, so maybe, you know, you have a long miles to cover, but get started, start with the bus, and then, you know, keep moving on, pick up a truck there if it is available, no, but just keep walking. Don't stop at all. So as long as you're going, so that's where your experience comes in. So therefore, on the earlier question, I said expertise comes later, but the experience is the bottom line. You know,
Right.
experience can actually get to the expertise. So once you're on your journey, you're continuing. It's very easy with the experience to do a course correction at any given point of time, because mechanical and computing has no relation. But the bottom line is this: as long as you're exposed, like in engineering, I think I studied about 64 subjects in 4 years. So that's a lot of learning.
Right.
So, so now you are by default inclined towards learning. You have the ability to, you know, spend time, which is what is required. You know,
Right.
it's just like if you want to do good in your job, you have to spend at least 8 hours a day. Same goes with the learning also. As long as you're spending those 10 hours, regardless of what you're learning, you are getting there. It just needs a little bit of correction from one direction to another. In any direction, you'll be that, you know, excellence guy, you know, at the end of the day, as long as your effort is there day in, day out. Oh, that's a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Again.
okay. It sounds like you weren't discouraged. You just looked for the opportunities, and you used your skills as a student to just keep learning.
Keep learning. Absolutely.
Good
Yeah.
answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David.
Fanny, thank you so much for everything you've said so far. And so far I've been listening, and I'm one of those persons that is so scared of trying new things. So when you're talking about the E-shape, I feel like I might end up being a jack of all trade and a master of none. So how does someone like me, that is first of all so scared to start new things, in so many other skills that can help me kind of fit in wherever I'm placed. For example, being a Scrum Master and then put in a position of a project manager, I'm as excellent as I am a Scrum Master, or maybe being a tester, I am as excellent as I am a Scrum Master. How does it really work? Is there a possibility to be excellent in all those shapes?
Okay, so I would start with your question. You said you're scared. You're scared of the end result. Don't be, because result is always relative. That's how I see it, right? For someone, uh, I getting or you scoring 100 is good for you, probably for the larger community, and maybe you scoring a 50 out of 100 is not good for the larger community. But what about you? What are you thinking about it? Have you done enough to get whatever that you wanted? So that should be the question. As in, if I'm you, I wouldn't be scared. Like, for example, Russell said, "Hey, come talk," and then he said, "Don't worry." I said, "No, I will not worry at all. I'll just talk what I can talk as good as it, And then probably if I'm not making sense, I can apologize at the end of the day, and then probably I can be a better person tomorrow. This is the experience. So that's the kind of approach I would take, not to be kind of scared of anything for that matter. It's not required, because being scared is like having someone judge ourselves. That's ideally it's not correct, because you have to judge yourself, and you'll say, "Hey, did I do or put in enough efforts to get this end result, or do I have to do more to get to the next level?" If we actually go in that perspective, it becomes easy, and then we don't really care about the end result, because we know I spend 10 hours and then I can get X output out of 10 hours. I cannot get X plus 1, because 10 hours is mapped to that X outputs. So as long as we are actually being there, it shouldn't matter, and then we should never be scared of the end result, because it's not end of the world, I would say. There's always is an experience. So therefore, that's a classic example of a E-shape. That's your experience. And then you build your expertise based on that. And then next time you won't do the same thing. Even if you do the same thing, that's okay. We can be a good thing. Probably, you learned it twice. So not to do the same thing at the same time, right? You fail once, and then you do the same stuff, you'll fail again. And that's a learning too, actually. According to me, it's a learning, actually. It's not really bad.
Thank you. Fanny, I would also add to some of the things that you just said. So what you just said, something that I took from it that I found useful, that Bonita might also find useful, is, the fear is one aspect. Then also the aspect of, am I spreading myself too thin? Am I learning too many things at the same time without mastering any? I would also add to that as well for Bonita, that from what you've been saying so far, that purpose is also very important. Understanding your end goal, knowing where you want to go with your learning. So for lack of a better word, being intentional. So if you are intentional, for instance, to say, I want to be a solution architect, Anthony has clearly defined that he wants to be a solution architect in 6 years, and he wants to know the first steps. So being intentional, basically, to Shankar's point, is identifying where you are today, and determining where you want to go tomorrow, and then mapping your path to get there. Fanny, did that capture exactly what you were also saying, communicating as well?
Absolutely. So see, there is nothing kind of mastering everything. There's only certain level that we can master in anything for that matter. So what important stuff is, like, if I want to take up something else, how much confidence I have in taking that next step. So that actually matters. As in, you don't really have to master the stuff, but end goal is, for example, to take a simple example of Azure, for example, or cloud computing. I learned Azure today. Okay. Hey, will I be successful in Java? No, it's very easy, because you have the experience of Azure. And then it's just about the next step, which is which is AWS, for example. It's pretty easy. As in, it's just that you don't have to be a master of Azure to go pick up AWS the next time. It's not required, actually. All it bothers us, like, if at all we want to question ourselves or judge ourselves, we have to say how much effort I've put and what is the output, and have that kind of mapping. End of the day, once you have it becomes very easy, and then you would know tomorrow if you're picking up something else. Hey, there's a time that I've got, and then there's a end goal that is there. Is it matching? No, it doesn't match. In 1 month, probably it matches in 2 months or 3 months. So you have a better way of planning stuff. End of the day.
Thank you, Fanny. Thank you. I noticed Anthony's hand is up, but I was wondering, is anybody else, before Anthony goes again, does anybody else have a question? Olise, I noticed you are up.
Yeah, good evening. And also, so sorry for the background, if there's any noise on the background, sorry. I just wanted to ask him a question. Thank you for sharing your experience so far. And I kind of relate to what he's saying, because I actually started also as well as a system administrator guy. And so for me, I would love to ask him, does the domain knowledge help him, or has domain knowledge helped him so far in his career growth as a solution architect?
No, it won't. Probably it might help you in finding a job. And then that's just a spent thing for that moment, actually. Because after you're on the job, probably someone might want to hire you because of prior experience in a particular domain knowledge, but that will not help you in your career. That's what I meant, actually. Yeah, for sure. For job, it does for some time. But to be that excellent guy, to be that top performer, it would never help. It is what is going forward, or what is there in that job, that what actually matters end of the day.
Okay, thank you. Also, in becoming a solution architect, does having a network, database, security, and network experience, does that actually build you up in becoming a solution architect?
Yes. So again, for being a solution architect in computing, what I would feel is like knowing storage, network, computing is the bottom line. A database, messaging servers, or Tomcat servers, or JBoss servers, WebSphere servers, all are on top of it, actually. So they're like, easy stuff. But if you understand it's like you should know the ABCDs of computing. As long as you know the ABCDs, that's it. You can pretty much be an expert in any other stuff, because solution architect would not solve a single problem with using a single tool. It's a holistic job, end of the day, for example.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I agree. Do you use the TOGAF framework?
Sorry?
Do you use the TOGAF framework?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Olise. Any other person? Anthony is ready to go. Any other person would like to ask a couple of questions or question?
Hey, Russell.
Yes, Alim. Hey, yes.
Russell, this is Alim, and Fanny, thank you so much. I was listening in your excellent discussions. Hey, Russell, thank you very, very much for putting together all these events. And I just wanted to say thank you, guys. And I've been quietly listening in, but obviously we'll be speaking pretty soon. Thank you. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
Yeah, thank you very much. Alim is a security expert, and he basically will be joining our show at some point in time to discuss system security, IT security, the state of security in general. Yeah, thank you very much, Alim. David? Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add in. So, thank you, Russell and Fanny, for having me here. And I just want to add in. I really agree with the premise of, trying something new. And Russell deemed me early on in the discussion as technical. And thank you for the compliment. But I don't always feel that way. But I think, given just the power of technology in general, and really the ability for one to really research things on their own, there's so many offerings out there on the internet. Some of them don't even cost any money. I did an AWS course via Coursera. I can put it in the chat if everyone would like. Very basic course, starts from the bare bones. You know, it's lecture driven where you're watching it. It's on demand. You can rewind 2 minutes. You can play it back again. There's a transcript. Like, it's really self-paced and you're on your own. You don't have to be in a classroom where you're going to get called on or get tested. It's really self-paced, self-governed. You can take a weekend, just, you know, plow through it. And again, I did it for free because I had a free trial. Everyone gets a free trial for, I think, 7 days. So there's courses like that out there. That's AWS. I'm sure there's something in Azure as well, but there's definitely opportunities out there. Just Googling things, just to look things up and just learn, what is that acronym? What are they talking about? I think just that opportunity to explore is really important as you're hearing things come up. What is that technology? How can I learn more? And just go find it. And there's definitely offerings at every technical level with AWS and Azure especially, but the one I found I thought to be pretty basic just to get it going. I'll put it in the chat just for everyone's benefit, but I really agree that the ongoing learning and training is very important.
Thank you very much. David is a product leader, and he will be one of our guests on this program sooner than later. Thank you very much, David.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? We want to go around now to Anthony. Anybody else want to ask a question or make a suggestion on how people can become E-shape skill? Okay, we have like 7 minutes to go. So let's give Anthony. Anthony, yes.
Thank you so much for that. Another opportunity. Sorry, it's an area that it's very close to my heart. So I'm really, really interested. But the question that I want to ask now, it's about being intentionally E-shaped, career longevity, as well as empowerment. So I noticed that E-shaped professionals are in very high demand, and companies are in much need. They would rather have someone who is E-shaped than just a specialist in just a simple domain. So again, considering the fact that in this platform, there are like, I think around 95 or so people who are considered, according to the workforce, as being from a BAME background. So when we talk about E-shaped, considering what you know at the moment, what advice will you give us in the platform that will help us to feel more empowered and to understand, you know, the importance of being E-shaped? Because I think it has a lot of value, but it would be nice for you, who is a professional in that field, to, you know, advise us more so that we will take being an E-shaped skill personnel seriously.
As in, you know, I don't have really a lot to add, but bottom line is this: know the definitions, and then you're there. So some of the definitions are easy to get started, but some are not. So for the things like, for example, there's a lot of talk about you know, frameworks, processes, and stuff like that. So that is like, you know, very you know, specific to the organizations that you work in. But in general, you know, if we are able to have that curiosity into anything, or at least, you know, to begin with, you know, the job that we are doing, whatever job that we are in, and for example, even if it is like as a simple content person who's just managing a CMS application, like a news portal, updating stuff, you know, uploading data. At least if you understand what's happening at the back end for each of it. So the bottom line is curiosity. So curiosity would actually get you to places, actually, end of the day. So keep asking, what are we doing? For example, if a work is done in 100 units on day one, the same work can be done in the same 100 units in day two, but you have to be efficient on day three. You cannot do the same in the same time, the same units, the same time cannot be done in day 3, because at that time you're kind of being very monotonous. You're not improving. Probably you're doing job just for the sake of doing it, just to pay your bills, etc. Right? Because job has to be the other personality. Because see, end of the day, that's how. So only if you adapt at that levels, only then you can actually succeed, and then go to places. Because end of the day, we have to go, progress the career in whatever that we are doing. So that is possible only if we know truly that we are adding value to whatever we are doing on every given day. Not because usually we do a monthly appraisals, half yearly, quarterly, yearly appraisals, right? So that's a time when we get evaluated. But what if I maintain a work log and then try to evaluate how am I doing on day 1 and day 2, day 3, and what if it actually becomes your daily ritual all along for the time that you're spending in your job? So that actually helps you get to a different level, because now most of the times when you don't question yourself on what you're doing, that's when you need a lot of definitions, a lot of processes, this, that, all the lingos, jargons, etc. Right? So that is required because probably we are missing the elementary stuff. So as long as we are sticking to that, evaluating, and then try to being innovative and being curious all the time, I think it's not really a big, a super big equation. It's a simple one-liner, As long as we are just
I
doing
agree.
the stuff, we are there.
I agree. It's not a very super complex equation. Fanny, I've noticed something with you. Everything is easy. You say it's
It
easy.
is.
It's easy. For us, some of some of us, it doesn't come very easy. But I have a question for Timmy. Timmy has a question there. Timmy, please, I see your hands up. Would you like to
Yeah,
ask a
sure,
question?
Rizal. Thanks for presenting this together, and thanks, Fanny, for all you said. So let me ask you this quick question. I'm sure you probably must have probably noticed it also. While we're in this journey of being A-shaped, I've noticed pretty much some recruiters maybe extending it beyond what A-shaped should probably be, like asking a Scrum Master that has an Angular experience with database knowledge. Don't you think we probably could be overextending the E-shape in some ways?
As talking specifically about Angular JS, you said, and
No,
then data.
no, pretty much you probably would notice some recruiters really expecting a unicorn while thinking someone should be E-shaped. Like you're asking a Scrum Master that has, you want a Scrum Master, that's the role you're looking for. But at the same time, you're asking for experience in Angular, experience in project management, and experience in some other unrelated field.
Yeah, as in it could be a targeted hiring probably, they have a serious frameworks which would require a subject matter experts. As in it again depends like how often it happens, right? So usually, right, for any app dev side, you would for sure need a database, for example, to begin with. So likewise, if you're into Angular JS, it's not really a big deal not to know a Node.js or any other the UI stack, for example. So it's pretty. Again, Russell wouldn't want me to use the word easy, but I would still say I don't see it any different than a JavaScript, for example, as long as you know the fundamentals. So all you need is like, what are the various other libraries which are there? It goes same with the JTE and the standard JE, right? So what's the difference between a JTE and a standard JE? It's like JTE has a lot of other libraries. And then when you get into the next levels, the Spring, Hibernate, and other stuff, they have a different kind of, library. So what are there? They are the frameworks, end of the day. So probably, some of specific jobs would need a Hibernate Spring professional because they have an existing framework and then they need someone to maintain or, develop something on top of those existing frameworks, right? So this is when you actually have developed your application as per market standard. Like for example, our application is based on JTE, but we don't have any kind of Hibernate or all this general so-called, that kind of framework. Instead, we have our own set of frameworks, like we have our own file system, for example, so the TCP layer or the, HTTP REST layers. So these are all, all built at a different level. So end of the day, it could be pretty much dependent on the need for that recruiter is there for. They are insisting on knowing a lot of stuff, but I'm sure someone who's actually talking to them, they would say, I don't really see a difference between a Node.js and Angular unless you're talking about a specific, stuff. They're all, even the Java JS also is all the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
I'm just gonna talk like Russell. Yeah, like you said, everything is easy, but I hope you're not gonna throw out a job requirement like that.
Sorry?
I hope you're not gonna throw out a job requirement like that for one of your staff.
No. So I recruit a lot. Like I've recruited about 23 people over the past 6 years. I've never asked a single technical.
Okay.
So I'm the recruiter, so who recruits for this office. All I need is the ingenuity towards learning.
Okay.
If I ask a question and then they're not able to answer that, at least if they follow it up and then say, think about it. And then when I ask the next question, probably they're mapping that with this. So as long as you have the inclination towards learning, the learning ability, the adaptability, that's what matters. Probably it's a difference between a 3 months and a 6 month for someone to be that proficient, right? If I hire a skilled person, probably that guy would start in 3 months, and I'll get an ROI in 3 months. And probably someone else who's not having that skill, they might be in 6 months. So it's just about 3 months. But if someone who has that super learning ability and then curiosity, why should we miss that person? Because that will be a long-term investment at the end of the day for the company, right?
Sure. Thanks for the response.
Nitty-gritties, technical nitty-gritties.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I want to be respectful of people's time. We're already on 3:15 New York time. It's 3:18 already New York time, and I wanted to thank you, Fanny. Before they let you go, is there any way they want to reach out to you where they can find you? Where can they find you?
I'm in India.
I meant online, everywhere.
Don't worry, you can try to find it there.
I'm not active on but I can leave my email address. That's the best way to reach out. But I'm not on LinkedIn, which is a little odd. I'm not active on social media because I don't want to be driven by anything. So therefore, I kind of limit myself. But Russell has my email address. He has my WhatsApp number. Anytime. I'm a trainer, by the way. I'm a corporate trainer. I've been doing that for the past at least 10 years or something into some specific technologies. Like I'm a cloud professional into application maintenance support side, and also a performance guy who can do a lot of performance. I'm talking about like really big data at a petabyte scale. So I've done major deployments at big companies like Citi, engineered solutions for deployments, implementations of applications. So that's my core expertise. So if you need any kind of help, I can do the talking. So that is like, I don't know if it makes sense, but still. But if you need any kind of assistance or anything, please, all welcome. World is one. So whenever you need anything, let me know.
Thank you.
And then Russell has the details. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It's an honor to talk to you all.
Wait, Fanny, wait. Before you exit, I wanted to also share that Fanny is going to be one of our subject matter experts in the GLAPI community. He's going to be focused on big data, Petra data. He's going to be available. So if you are handling projects and you're a member of the GLAPI community, which is the glapi.org, you always know that you have an in-house subject matter expert that can support those concerns and those queries. Again, like we mentioned, the community is going to be focused on having experts. These are world-class experts in security, database management, big data, whatever, so that the community. Oh, I'm sorry. that sneeze blew me off. So the community will get the necessary support that they need to thrive. Fanny, thank you very much again for your time. I don't know, is there any, I also kept the link. If you want to be a part of our community, we have a small community on Telegram, about 109 people. We have conversations like this every Saturday, the same time, 2 o'clock to 3:15. We're looking at, subsequently, we're going to be looking at security best practices and product management. As soon as we get these professionals ready and they can make time to speak with us, they are going to come here on this platform like Fanny has done to talk about these things that can improve your skill set as a professional. Feel free to jump in anytime, every Saturday. Stay tuned to this channel. Fanny, is there any last words before we let you go?
All the best.
Thank you.
Everyone, to myself also, we'll continue to do good things. We'll keep learning. Knowledge is an ocean. There's a lot to learn. You would never get exhausted, so that actually keeps up and running, because as long as we keep our brain sharp, we'll live long, we'll be like super good. Imagine this again is kind of I don't know why did I say that, but I felt that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Fanny. And it's almost 1 a.m. or so, 1 a.m. your time. And I know today is celebration, Diwali celebration in India. Did I pronounce that right? Diwali?
Yeah, it's Diwali, yeah.
Diwali. So please enjoy your celebration. Anthony, you wanted to say anything?
Thank you so much, Fanny. I never knew that it's a celebration day for you. It shows your desire, to help others and be part of.
Every day is a celebration day. So
oh, brilliant! Yeah.
Every day has to be celebrated. You don't need a day in a year to celebrate.